All right, so are you ready to dive in? Today, we're looking into the Bear Brook murders, or, as it's also known, the Allenstown Four case, and it's considered one of the most chilling cold cases, really, in America, and for good reason. I mean, picture this: 1985, Bear Brook State Park, New Hampshire. A hunter just, doing his thing, stumbles across a metal barrel, but this isn't your typical barrel. Inside are the remains of an adult woman and a young girl. And that's just the beginning of the mystery, right? No IDs, no obvious cause of death. So, who were they? What happened?
Well, and what's really, I think, so gripping about this whole case is that it went cold for 15 years. 15 years. Then in 2000, they find another barrel. And get this, it's only 100 yards from that first one.
Yeah.
And inside, two more young girls. That second discovery really, I think, ramped up the mystery. It's like the story was just waiting to be, unraveled.
Yeah, I can only imagine what investigators were thinking at that point. I mean, limited technology, no real leads. You've got four victims, and they all seem connected, but nobody knows who they are. Where do you even start with something like that?
Exactly. Back then, investigators didn't have the tools we have today. It wasn't really until the 2000s that DNA technology started giving us some real clues. And even then, it wasn't exactly straightforward. Like they ran tests and they showed a maternal link between the woman in the first barrel and two of the girls. But, and here's the twist, the third child, the one from the second barrel, wasn't related at all. So this is where things start to feel like, a crime show.
Right, genealogical DNA testing.
Yeah.
It's amazing how this relatively new technology can just connect the dots to potential relatives. It's almost like magic. It really did open up a whole new world for investigators.
It's really remarkable. So through this genealogical DNA testing, they're finally able to put a name to the killer. Terry Peter Rasmussen. But he wasn't, just some average guy. He went by a lot of different aliases. Kind of a drifter, moved around a lot, convicted felon. He had a past that was really shrouded in secrets. Turns out he even lived near Bear Brook State Park under a fake name around the time of the murders.
Whoa, wait, hold on. Multiple aliases. That's a major red flag. It makes you wonder what he was running from, or maybe even running towards. What makes someone live under so many different identities?
Well, that's a fascinating question. And this is where Rasmussen's story gets really, really sinister. He was also linked to the disappearance of another woman back in 1981, Denise Boughton. She just vanished, and nobody's ever found her body. And here's the bombshell. That third child, the one that wasn't related to the others, turns out she was actually Rasmussen's own daughter.
Wow, the plot thickens, doesn't it? So not only did he take the lives of all these people, he also stole his own daughter's identity. And any chance she had at life, it's hard to even grasp that level of cruelty.
Yeah, it's a tragedy in so many ways. And what makes it even more heartbreaking is that all four victims, including the three that were related, were his. It just paints this picture of a man who was capable of, well, unimaginable acts, someone who preyed on vulnerable people and left a trail of, just devastation wherever he went. Okay, so we were just talking about the impact of forensic genealogy. And I think it's worth mentioning the Bear Brook podcast itself, really helped to raise awareness about this whole case.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a perfect example of how, true crime podcasts can be so much more than just entertainment. They can actually contribute to investigations. I mean, think about it. This podcast brought new attention to a case that had been cold for years. It's like they breathed new life into the search for answers.
Yeah, exactly. And they did something else that was really important. They humanized the victims. They reminded everyone that these weren't just, names on a file. These were real people with families who missed them terribly, who gave them back their stories.
Yeah, you're right. And speaking of the victims, let's talk more about Marlies Honeychurch. I mean, we know she was involved with Rasmussen, but their relationship seems so secretive. It's almost like he was deliberately isolating her from her loved ones.
Well, and what's especially eerie is how, Honeychurch's family last saw her and the girls at a gathering in California. She introduced Rasmussen as her boyfriend, but then shortly after that, they all just vanished. It's almost like he was, trying to erase their past.
Yeah.
Making it harder for them to be found.
It's chilling to think about the level of control he must have had over them, just manipulating their lives and ultimately, robbing them of their futures. And then you add in the fact that he was using aliases, and it just adds this whole other layer of deception to the story. It's like he was living this double life, preying on women and children.
Exactly. This pattern of deceit, the manipulation, it suggests that he was a deeply, deeply disturbed individual. And remember, Rasmussen was eventually convicted of murdering another woman in California. So
Yeah.
we know he was capable of extreme violence. It's a pattern that sadly you see repeated over and over.
It's just hard to wrap your head around that level of cruelty. And the way he disposed of their bodies, just so callous, stuffing them into barrels and abandoning them in the woods like they were like trash, it's dehumanizing.
You're right. It really speaks to this complete lack of remorse,
Yeah.
an absence of empathy. He treated their remains like they were nothing, like their lives had no value.
It's horrifying. So what about Rasmussen's daughter, the unidentified child? Are there any leads on who her mother might be or any clues at all to her identity?
Unfortunately, no.
Hmm.
That's still one of the biggest mysteries in this whole case. We know she was his biological daughter. The DNA proves that.
Hmm.
But her mother's identity is completely unknown. It's a haunting thought. It's possible Rasmussen killed her too.
Hmm.
Or maybe, just maybe, she's still out there somewhere, not even knowing about her connection to this whole thing.
Yeah, that's a thought that really sends chills down your spine. It really shows you the ripple effect of these crimes,
Yeah.
all the unanswered questions that just keep haunting everyone involved.
Right. And her case also highlights the limitations of, even with DNA technology. Like, yes, it's been amazing for solving cold cases, but there are still gaps in the databases. Not everyone has submitted their DNA.
Ah,
And there are legitimate privacy concerns to think about. It's not a perfect solution.
yeah.
You know,
No, it's not. It's not as simple as just like running a DNA test and boom, case solved. You have to consider the ethics of it, the data privacy issues. It's complicated.
Absolutely. And as we, kind of keep digging into this case, it's really important to remember that at the heart of it all, this is about real people, families who lost loved ones, investigators who dedicated their lives to trying to find justice, and entire communities that were, traumatized by these horrific crimes.
It's so easy to get caught up in all the details, the twists and turns, the puzzle of it all. But we can't ever forget the human cost. The impact these tragedies have on real lives. These are more than just stories. They're echoes of pain and loss.
That's a really powerful way to put it. And before we wrap up this part of our discussion, I want to leave you with this thought. The Bear Brook murders are this chilling reminder of the darkness that can hide beneath the surface, even in seemingly normal lives. It's a wake-up call. Evil can wear so many different masks. And even in the most peaceful places, danger can be lurking just out of sight.
Yeah, it's a reminder that appearances can be deceiving and that monsters can walk among us, hiding in plain sight. It's unsettling, to say the least. So, looking at Rasmussen's history and how calculated his crimes were, do you think something like this could happen again? Are there any red flags or patterns that we should be aware of?
Well, that's a question that really deserves its own deep dive. It's tough to predict these kinds of, horrific acts. But I think understanding the psychology of people like Rasmussen, recognizing the signs of manipulation and control, those are definitely conversations we need to have.
Yeah, it's a sobering thought. And before we move on to the last part of our deep dive, I want you to take a moment to think about this. What are your thoughts on personal responsibility? When it comes to safety and awareness, do we have a duty to educate ourselves about potential threats and take steps to protect ourselves and the people we care about?
It's a tough question, and there aren't any easy answers. But as we move into the final part of our conversation, let's keep those thoughts in mind. We're going to explore the bigger picture of this case and the lasting impact it's had on how we understand crime and justice,
Yeah.
and the human capacity for both good and evil.
We've been through a lot with this deep dive into the Bear Brook murders, haven't we?
We really have.
From, that chilling discovery of those barrels to the amazing breakthroughs they made with, like, forensic genealogy. It's a case that's both, I don't know, horrifying and fascinating at the same time. It makes you wonder, like, how could someone do something so terrible? But then you're also amazed by how far we've come in terms of, finding answers and bringing some kind of justice.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as we kind of wrap things up here, I think it's important to emphasize just how much this case has changed criminal investigations.
Yeah.
The Bear Brook murders, they might not have been the first to use forensic genealogy, but they definitely put it on the map. They showed everyone what it could do.
You're so right. It's become this, like, incredible tool for solving cold cases. And it gives hope to so many families who've been waiting for answers for years, sometimes decades. It's like a ray of light in all the darkness.
Exactly. And it's not just about catching the bad guys. It's about giving the victims back their names, their identities, like Marlice, Marie, and Sarah. They were no longer just Jane Does. They were daughters, mothers, sisters, people who are loved and are still missed.
That's so important. It's about remembering their humanity, right?
Hmm.
Acknowledging that they had lives before they were taken from us. But even with all the advancements in DNA technology, we still have one victim who doesn't have a name. Rasmussen's daughter. What are the chances of her being identified? I mean, even with all the tools we have now.
Well, that's a really tough question. And honestly, the chances are slim. It all comes down to finding a match in those genealogical databases. Maybe someone related to her mother submitted their DNA. Or, maybe as more people use these services, a connection will eventually pop up. It's a long shot, for sure.
It's like looking for a needle in a haystack.
Pretty much.
But, it's not impossible.
Right. We can't rule it out completely.
It just goes to show you that even though technology can be amazing, it's not a magic bullet. You still need dedicated investigators, people who are really good at genealogy, and sometimes a little bit of luck.
You got it. It really is a testament to the power of hope, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely.
Even when things seem impossible, there are people who never give up, who keep searching for answers no matter how long it takes. And that's what drives them, that belief that even the smallest clue could lead to a breakthrough.
That's what makes cases like this so captivating. It reminds us that even in the darkest parts of humanity, there's still light. There are stories of resilience and this constant pursuit of justice.
Beautifully said. So as we finish our deep dive here, I want you to think about this. The Bear Brook murders are this chilling reminder of just how fragile life is and the devastating impact that violence can have. But they also show us the power of human ingenuity, of collaboration, and this relentless drive to find the truth. It's a story that stays with you, and it makes you want to cherish the people you love, to never give up hope, and to work towards a world where these kinds of tragedies are just a distant memory.
That's a perfect way to end this. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into one of America's most haunting cold cases. We've explored the details, the scientific breakthroughs, and the human stories at the heart of it all. But as we've seen, some questions might never be answered, and maybe that's okay. Sometimes the most important thing is to recognize the complexity, to honor the victims, and never forget the lessons we've learned along the way. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep searching for the truth wherever it might lead you from